Success. Media. Network. 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 Network.
This is your show.
Good day, successors. I'm Antonio Holman, and welcome to the 4 Principles of Success, number 44, where I chat with successful people and entrepreneurs about how they enhance their businesses and lives in the areas of knowledge, health, wealth, and spirituality. And if you want to learn how I've stayed motivated throughout the years, check out my new book, Indulge Your Affirmative Motivation Within, 25 Motivations of Personal Development and Life Success, now on Amazon. Today, we're talking to Rocky Romanella. Rocky is located in New Jersey, and after climbing the ranks of UPS, the largest transportation logistics company in the world, went on to become president and general manager of UPS Supply Chain Solutions, then retiring to eventually serve as chief executive officer and director for UniTek Global Services, a mid-cap telecommunications solutions company. Rocky's experience ultimately led him to the founding of 360 Management Services, LLC, and the authoring of his book, Tighten the Lug Nuts, The Principles of Balanced Leadership, which explores the ways a true leader can add value as a trusted advisor, mentor, and visionary who uses a process approach to lead the organization and its people to the new levels of success. Rocky, are you ready to help our listeners prepare for success?
Well, good morning, Antonio, and I would be honored and I would enjoy it thoroughly. Thank you.
Great. Glad you're here with us today. Okay, Rocky, so aside from your very busy business world, tell us a little bit about your personal life.
Well, after over 40 years of business, and as you read in the introduction, there are some great titles and some great responsibilities and fortunate opportunities. I have the greatest title of all time. It's Grandpa.
Oh.
So I have 2 wonderful grandchildren, Nico Anthony and Penelope Rose, and we just found out we have 2 more on the way. So it's going to be an exciting, busy household here for the Romanella. So it's exciting. So that's probably the hobby for me is being a grandpa. So I was telling someone the other day, I've sat in some pretty significant boardrooms or some pretty significant meetings, but now if someone saw me now, I'm running around dancing the hot dog song with Mickey Mouse and my grandson Nico right now.
Uh-huh.
So it's amazing. It's amazing where we are and the things that we find joy in. But it's great. Blessed with a wonderful family, and they've been so supportive throughout my career and my moves. But that's predominantly what I'm doing now. I play a little golf, not very good, but it gives me a chance to play golf with my 2 sons. And my 2 daughters I try to help them out with their grandkids as often as we can, Debbie and I. So it's a fun time to be a Romanella right now.
For those who may not know, tell us about your company, 360 Management Services, and how it helps people.
So thanks for asking. So 360 Management Services, as you said in the introduction, I retired from UPS and then retired from a CEO role after a sale there. And I feel like one of the true measures of a leader is the legacy that they leave behind. I mean, do you leave things a little better than you found it? Are people better because of their time with you? Are your customers better because of their interactions with you? And did you do a good job as a steward of the business? And so entrepreneurs know that better than anyone. And in this book, Balanced Leadership, we talk about those 3 tenets of customers, people, and stakeholders or share owners. And so I thought, I wanted to continue this legacy concept of, helping out and leaving a little better. And I felt like with 40 years of business experience, how could we do that? And so we developed myself and 3 or 4 individuals that I worked with at UPS who also had retired. How do we continue that legacy concept and the ability to help others? And so we founded 360 Management Services. There's 3 legs of our stool at 360. One leg is the public speaking, keynote speaking, of which I predominantly do. Then we have a leadership training piece. We come in and do 4-hour workshops, day-and-a-half workshops, things like that around leadership and the ability to interact with your people, grow your business, develop your business. In fact, I'm working right now with Seton Hall University in New Jersey, teaching a class there, Why Values Matter. And I've rolled that class out to some major corporations. And it really, as you know, in today's world and with all that's going on, values are such an important thing. I mean, how do companies like Wells Fargo or Uber get themselves in those situations? Volkswagen, values is so important about values and the ethics and the integrity of which you do things. And then the third leg of the stool is there's actually a more traditional consulting side of the business, but we really focus in on process improvement, where we sit down with organizations and help them understand how to improve their processes, how to map things out, and then how do you implement them and educate the people so that they understand what roles and responsibilities they had. So that's 360. We enjoy doing it. We love working with people, and we feel like when we leave, things are a little better than we got there. So that's the best part.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point of it all. I love that. What was your first experience as an entrepreneur, and how old were you?
Well, it's interesting. Me personally starting as an entrepreneur, my first experience wasn't me starting it. So at UPS, we were going through an acquisition period, and so as UPS was acquiring companies, I got the opportunity to be the implementer or person who onboarded the companies, understood the companies. And so one of our first major acquisitions was the UPS, was MBE at the time, which we rebranded to the UPS Store. And today there's over 5,000 UPS Store franchises, and they're all franchisee owned. And so those independent business owners, those entrepreneurs, were my first education, understanding, or introduction to that entrepreneurial spirit. And I will tell you, they are some of the finest people I ever met. And that's the first time I really understood this concept of acting like an owner, which I talk about in the book, Tighten the Lug Nuts, because owners are all in, right? I mean, in large corporations, people believe they have P&L, profit and loss responsibilities. But the owners have the ultimate P&L responsibility, right? Because at the end of the day, you hit the cash register and the door the drawer opens, and you pay your people, you pay your vendors, and what's left in that cash register is what you take home for your family. So that's the ultimate, P&L responsibility, and ultimate in really understanding what it means to act like an owner. And so getting the opportunity to spend time with them, visiting with them, and help grow that part of the business, to me, was just a great introduction. And so from there, when I retired from UniTek, or when we did the sale at UniTek, I thought, well, you know what? What an opportunity it would be for me to start a business and then hopefully, continue this legacy concept, but also do it from an independent business owner perspective. And so, that's how we started this concept of 360. But my foundation and my understanding of being an entrepreneur was spending time and having the influence from those franchisees and independent business owners at the UPS Store. Great people, it's a great network, but you really get the sense of, what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Now, you never get that truly until you do it yourself, and, things aren't going exactly the way you want, and you're, it's like, wow, wait a minute, this is, I thought this revenue would be come in, or, in a small business world, day sales outstanding or collections is, sometimes the biggest coordination you have to do, collect the money and then pay out, those kinds of coordinating things. And you really learn that watching them. But when you do it yourself, it's really like, wow, this is really a timing situation that gets a little tense here.
Now, you seem to have been very driven throughout your career at UPS. And then, of course, you went on to found your own company. In what way do you feel your East Coast upbringing fueled that type of drive, and how does it still fuel today?
Well, I think some of it's that, but I think it really comes down to my dad, rest his soul. My dad told me, so a friend of mine gets the first job at UPS. We were all coming out of high school in 1976, June 15th to be exact. And he gets his job, and the gentleman's name is Mike Coffey, gets a job at UPS and comes back and says, hey, UPS is hiring. So my dad told me two things that stuck with me throughout my career and my life that, I believe is really the sort of the driving force behind Rocky Romanella. And the first thing he said to me was, whatever they ask you to do, say yes and thank you. And then the second thing he said is learn your job and learn some more. The day you think you know everything is the day you're starting to go backwards. So never believe you know everything, be humble, but learn your job and learn some more. And so UPS had a promotion from within policy. And so as I was growing and developing inside of UPS, there were times when UPS would say, hey, we got this opportunity for you. We think you're the right person for the job. I may not have been ready for it. I may have been nervous or concerned. But my dad kept hearing my dad say yes and thank you. So I'm like, okay, if you guys are ready, if you think I can do this, I'm in, because dad said, hey, whatever they ask you to do, say yes and thank you. And so I also learned this concept as I watched this, that, you have to believe in your people until they're ready to believe in themselves. And so there were times when UPS believed in me when I wasn't ready to believe in myself. And so that became my mantra as a leader. I need to believe in my people until they're ready to believe in themselves. And you bridge that confidence gap until they're ready, they get some successes, they feel good about themselves, and then they just kind of take it from there. And so for me, yeah, maybe the hustle and bustle of the East Coast, or maybe, being, aggressive. I mean, I always believe that, hey, someone's going to be the best at something, why not me? So, and I always say that to my people, anybody who's ever worked for me, hey, someone's going to be the best, why not you? Let's just do this. I mean, if you're going to do it, you might as well be the best at it. And so that, with a combination of my dad always whispering in my ear, hey, whatever they ask you to do, say yes and thank you, and learn your job and learn some more, I think is the big influence. And in the book, I talk a lot about my dad and the things that he taught me. And frankly, the second, my adult life, the greatest influence is my wife, who I think, has been such a great influence on me as a person and as a leader, as well as, raising, 4 beautiful children and now grandchildren and those things. But I think that there's always got to be someone in your life. I think that's, you don't realize it maybe at the time, that is that key influential leader. And even as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, there's somebody out there that's touched you. Sometimes you just don't really take the inventory to know who it is. But somewhere along the way, somebody said something or did something that clicked with you as an entrepreneur who now says, okay, I can do this. And it may be someone you pick up the phone and call. It could be someone that that put their arm around you at that moment. But there's always that one or two. It could be a parent, it could be a teacher. I find teachers are some of the greatest influencers and some of the greatest mentors that did something, said something that kind of motivated you, that you may not have realized it at the time, but you look back and you said, wow, there but for the grace of God, where would I be? And without that person influencing me, I'm not sure I'd be here.
Now, you've touched on the subject of leadership, but when you're not necessarily in a leadership role, how can a person begin to even look as if they are a leader? What basic couple steps are needed or traits are needed to enter into a role of leadership?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think it's a great question for a lot of reasons, because to me, leadership is something that we all have concerns about. I mean, and leadership is not a concept that's reserved for and only applies to certain people in business or government or civic organizations. So I think sometimes people get this concept that in order to be a leader, you have to have a title, and that's not true at all. I mean, the reality is, no matter our age or gender or occupation, we all are leaders at some time or another, whether it's on that Little League field or on a PTA. And as I said before, to me, some of the greatest teachers of all time, some of the greatest leaders of all time are teachers, right? Because if you think about a teacher for a second, if I asked you who your congressman or congresswoman was, or who is your representative, you may not know. People may not know that name. But if I said to someone, who's that teacher that made an influence in your life? Everybody stops, tilts their head and says, oh, yeah, 5th grade, Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, or 2nd grade or high school. So to me, that really defines leadership, right? You're mentoring, you're influencing people. And so for me, leadership's all about the ability to build that bridge to the future, to give people a chance to see, where we're trying to go, where they're trying to go, and how they get there. And so for me, there's a couple traits of leadership. The first is you have to be a good communicator, whether that's as an individual in a small group or whether it's in a large organization. You have to be a good communicator, right? You have to be what I call a job skills developer, someone who develops their own skills as well as those around them. And so you're always trying to develop yourself and those people that you influence and that you interact with. And as I said, think about a teacher, right? Nobody does that better than teachers, right? They have to communicate so everyone in the class understands what's going on. They have to develop the skills of each individual, who each of them are learning at different paces. But at the end, they still have to get to a point. In business, I talk about you have to be customer service focused, and I always think about that from an internal and external perspective. I think as a small business owner, you're influencing the end user that walks through your door and maybe buys a product or service from you, but you're also trying to give good customer service to the people inside your organization. You may be small with 4 or 5 people, but all 4 or 5 people have to have a clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish as a business owner and where you're trying to take this organization, and more importantly, what role they play. And last is this whole concept of accountability. You have to have self-accountability, and as well as you have to have accountability to the people around you. You have to hold your people accountable, but you have to start with yourself. Do you hold yourself to the same standards of excellence that you expect of your people and of the products and services that you sell? And so those to me are the 4, I think, key components of good leadership: good communicator, develop skills, yours and those around you. Are you customer focused internally and externally, and do you hold yourself and your people accountable? And so those to me would be four really core basic skills of a good leader. But I think we're all leaders because we influence, we mentor, and we make a difference in people's lives that we impact. And if we take it from that perspective, then at some point we're all going to be a leader.
Mm-hmm. I really love the words you say. You must have good customer service within your organization. And I think a lot of people miss that concept. Rocky, tell us about your book, Tighten the Lug Nuts. What's it about and what inspired you to write it?
Well, thank you very much for asking. So Tighten the Lug Nuts is this kind of book. I was thinking about legacy and thinking about, I was, with a career that spanned 40 years with a lot of experiences, good, bad, and indifferent, as you know. I mean, it's not always a perfect day or a great day, but you learn from all experiences. I wanted a way to kind of put that in a book and maybe hopefully someone read the book and feel good about themselves or reinforce what they're doing is good, or maybe get an aha moment like, I got to think about it differently. And so one of my styles and one of the traits I've always used is I don't like to preach, and I never felt like at a meeting, if I said, if Antonio, you brought forth an idea, I felt like if I said to you, well, I would have done it differently, or I would look at it differently, I felt like you shut off communication. So I developed over the years this third person named Joe Scafone. And we'd all joke about it. And so if you brought me an idea, I'd say, hey, what would Joe think? You think Joe thinks that's a good idea? And so it was an easier way for me to challenge you to look past the first right answer. It's not that your first answer was wrong. I've always believed that you challenge yourself and your people to look past that first right answer and see if there's more there. And, and to always try to get the best out of you and for you to want the best of yourself. And so how do you do that without challenging them in a negative way? And so for me, it was always this Joe Scafone character. And funny, towards the end, as people really got to know me and spend a lot of time with me, they'd come to a meeting and say, hey, I already covered this with Joe. He thinks it's a good idea. And I'd say, that's great, but let me talk to you about it. So the book is written in this third person, Joe Scafone, and it's not only lessons, but it's also concepts and thoughts. And I weave in stories in there to make it a fun read, but also an impactful read. And so I think if it's a great read from the fact that it's plain talking, it's a fun book, but you have quite a few aha moments where you put the book down at the end of a chapter, you're like, okay, I got that. So, and I think that's the key. The title comes from a story of I think it's one of the stories that I love, and I talk a lot about it. And the story of this whole individual that, I was walking through one of our facilities, and as I was walking to talk to him about an important thing I needed him to take care of, I noticed that one of the vehicles had loose lug nuts. And it happens, the rattling and the wear and tear on the road. And so I went over to double check and see, they look loose. And so as I'm approaching him, he's an automotive person, I said to him, hey, I got two things for you. First thing he said is loose lug nuts over there on that vehicle. And he's like, okay, I got that. What do you got? Now, I'm the most senior management person, so he's all excited. He's talking to, the district manager, the leader of his business unit. And so I said to him, hey, look, I've got this job for you to do. It's one of the most important things we need to get done. You're the person I think can get it done, and I've got great faith and confidence in you. Well, he's excited. So he begins to start thinking in his mind all the things he's going to do to take care of this task for me. I said to him, well, look, I'll be down in a couple of days. Well, let me know how you're doing and what help I can give you. Well, I come down in a couple of days, and he's all disheveled. He's got stuff all over the place. I said, what's the matter? He said, wow, you can't believe it. I got no luck at all. Nothing goes my way. I said, what happened? He said, well, I got a call that that vehicle, the tire almost came off. So now I got a road call. I got to get out there and fix it. And everything else is getting pushed behind. Now I'm just getting overwhelmed. I said, well, is that the one I pointed out to you? And he said, yeah. I said, well, why don't you just tighten the lug nuts? And so the concept is, the day I told him the lug nuts were loose, it was a simple task. They were important, but they weren't urgent. But because he didn't take care of that important task, now they became urgent. Well, a person can only handle so many urgent things in your life. And when you allow important things to become urgent, then you get overwhelmed, and now it becomes a problem. And now you feel like you can't get things done. You have no luck. I can't believe this happens to me. Tighten the lug nuts. And so it's always a concept that I use. And you can see it in life. I mean, I'm not going to ever get into politics with you or anyone, because everyone's got their own personal opinion, as you know. But think about politics for a second. You have one group that's in power, and they've got all these loose lug nuts, that they didn't tighten when they were out of power. And now all of a sudden they're overwhelmed. Well, you could have tightened those lug nuts back then when you weren't in power, right? When you weren't the group that had the majority. And now the group that's not the majority, are they tightening all the lug nuts, or are they letting these lug nuts go now when they become in power? So it's the kid who doesn't, study for the final to the night before, and now they're overwhelmed. So the concept of tighten the lug nuts is, when important things become urgent, you can only handle so many urgent things. Tighten the lug nuts, take care of the important things when you can. If there's an email you're supposed to follow up on, it's like if I wasn't prepared for our conversation today, I could wake up and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe I got a podcast to do now." Well, no, I knew I had it all worked out. I laid out what I want to talk to you about. I did my home research on you. Congratulations, by the way, on your new book. That's fantastic. It's on Amazon. So you do your homework. You tighten the lug nuts. But if I left those loose lug nuts and didn't know anything about you or about the talk and or the concepts that you're trying to get out to your audience, well, then I'm overwhelmed. It's not your fault. Mm-hmm. It's mine. I didn't tighten the lug nuts. So that's the whole concept that's where the title comes from. And that's one of the stories in the book. There's many in the book, but thank you for asking. I hope people enjoy it. I mean, I will tell you the greatest compliment I've gotten on the book so far, I get a lot of nice emails and stuff, is that because I talk a lot about my dad in the beginning and Deb as very important influencers in my life, I've got quite a few people who have called me or emailed me and said, "Hey, I read the book, put the book down, and frankly, picked up the phone and called my dad, or my dad since passed, but thought about my dad, thought about the conversations we had." So, to tell you the truth, Antonio, if that's if that comes out of the book, that's fantastic for me.
I love that concept of it all. Yeah, very, very good. Now, Rocky, as you know, the world's full of ups and downs and craziness. Throughout your journey, what was the time when you felt most unsuccessful in your life?
Well, I'll tell you on a funny one. It's right now because Debbie, I think I can't figure out this retirement thing. I've retired 3 times already, and I'm still working. I think I'm struggling with this retirement thing. But no, that aside, I mean, I tell you what, I was thrust into a very difficult situation when I took over the role as CEO at UniTek, and this is public, so I'm not telling you any information that's non-public But so I take on this role, get recruited for this role as CEO, and I'm a builder. I'm a person that builds a culture, grows things, get people working together, and that's who I am. And so I'm in this role 6 months, and we end up with an unfortunate situation from an integrity perspective. And so now we're a public company. Now I've got to disclose these things, and so now I've got to make these key decisions. And I guess from a personal success, while it was good that we shepherded the company to a good place. We took care of the individuals who needed to get taken care of. We kept the company going and then shepherded it to a better place. For me personally, I never got the chance to fulfill and do the things I wanted to do, build a culture, get people to feel good about themselves. And so that was a very difficult time, right? And I made the decision to stay, even though the stuff that came out was all well before me. For me, I felt like there was 3,000 people in the organization that did nothing wrong. And if I were to leave as the leader, it probably would be no company, right? And so I said, well, look, these people did nothing wrong, even though this isn't, I didn't start the fire, but I'm going to shepherd this to a better place. It was difficult, though, because I had such a view and such an excitement about taking on this role and responsibility to do these things here. And then when, the curveball was, well, wait a second, we're not going to get to that. We've got to do this. I think sometimes that's a difficulty, and I never felt fulfilled in doing those things. I felt great about the fact that the company survived. It's in a better place. It's doing very well now. I did the things, personally, with integrity, and that was all good. But sometimes you get in a situation that you just never really get to fulfill the dreams and aspirations that you want. But you learn a lot from it, and I met some great people, and I think back and think I never would have met those individuals if I hadn't. So I think sometimes it's not always failure in the sense of things didn't work or things didn't go the way you wanted them to go. Sometimes it's an unfulfilled situation where you just don't feel like you never got a chance to do that or do that or hit that goal. But you know what? You have to take a view of the entire and say, you know what, we did some good things. So I would say that was probably one of the more difficult situations I was in, and kind of left successful but unfulfilled, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Hang tight, successors. We'll return to our conversation with Rocky Romanella, as well as quick success after a word from our sponsors. Podcasters, want more listeners? Check out promosharecast.com and join the community today. That's promosharecast.com. Join today and get the first month free, and you'll also receive 50% off for a lifetime membership. Sign up today. promosharecast.com. Are you a tense, tired, busy person who works day in and day out, who tends to lack the proper sleep and energy? Using modular supplements, health-related articles, recipes, life hacks, and more, Bellison can help. With quality as high as Bellison, you're buying from a company that cares about the environment and only uses premium vegan supplements. That's Bellison.com. Want to learn how to cook healthy, exercise, and meditate in just 30 minutes a day? Bellison.com. Want to feel healthy, energetic, and focused like me? Bellison.com. To receive a 10% discount at checkout, visit Bellison.com with the coupon code THE4POS. Visit Bellison.com now. That's BELISAN.com. Compassion and quality without compromise. Bellison.com. And we're back with Rocky Romanella. Now we get into the part of the show I like to call Quick Success, where you, Rocky, can inspire the successors to enhance their lives in the areas of knowledge, health, wealth, and spirituality. Rocky, what are you currently doing to enhance your knowledge?
Well, I tell you what, I listen, I always do what my dad said, learn the job and learn some more. And so I try to interact with as many people as I can. The speaking has really helped me because I'm interacting with different groups and different associations, and I'm learning about their businesses and how they do that. And then the last thing is, I always ask a key question that I think has given me the most education and knowledge. And when I'm with the customer, I always ask them the question, hey, what keeps you up awake at night? When I'm into individuals, knowing what you know today, what would you do differently? And those two questions always solicit a lot of great information for me and really teach me a lot about people and how they got to where they are today, as well as companies. And so those two questions really help me with that.
What are you currently doing to enhance your health?
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm on this new diet. Not that I was very much overweight, but I'm on this new diet because I was on cholesterol medication and all that kind of stuff. Just from, I think it was more family heritage. But it's on this. It's kind of really taking a look at the wellness of eating. I run a lot, so I was always okay from an athletic perspective. But I was really struggling with my cholesterol and some of those things. They were starting to talk about high blood pressure medication. So I started this diet with my wife. My father-in-law had diabetes, and so Debbie was worried about that. So it's really a protein kind of diet, and it allows me to have a good eating regimen, but not be so intrusive that everybody would know. So I would go to dinner with you, Antonio. You would know I was on this diet. It's just the way you eat. It's protein. I really watch my carbohydrates today. Picture me as this, Italian guy. I'm sitting there with bread and pasta and everything else. So I really kind of control that piece of it. But I really feel very, very good, and cholesterol medication is way down, and I'm not on the high blood pressure, so that's good stuff. So I feel a lot better about myself that way.
What are you currently doing to enhance your wealth?
I got to tell you, for me, it's all about reducing debt. So for me, I spend all my time trying to figure out ways to have zero debt, right? No mortgages, no loans, credit card balances. So for me, everything I do, now with this 360 management services is all about knocking down debt. So I'm very, very close to being debt free. And for me, that's all. It's what it's all about for me. It's maybe as I retired, I didn't go on as many trips as my friends did and so other things, but I spent all my time trying to knock down my debt. So for me, I want to be debt free, and then from that point forward, I think you just sleep better at night, and then you can do a lot of things that you want to do with your kids and your family and your grandkids. What
are you currently doing to enhance your spirituality?
Well, I believe that without faith, there's no hope, and without hope, it's despair. And so in these difficult times, both we all are going to have these difficulties. I'm a great believer that, you have to have faith, and, each of us has it maybe in a different place. I'm Italian Catholic, and so there, but each of us has a different place, but you have to have faith. You have to have, I believe, a belief in that things will be better, and that there's always going to be hope. And as, you look through some of the tragedies that have taken place in the world, and whether in Las Vegas or Orlando last year, without faith, that, you have no hope. And so without hope, you have despair. So for me, it's all about having faith, and it's about the ability to understand that. And then in the book, I talk about something that I think is so important, and it's simple acts of kindness. I mean, through all these tragedies, you see just tremendous kindness by individuals who don't know each other, but in that moment, lend that helping hand, or, actually make sacrifices of their own life on behalf of their fellow human beings. And I think that's that human spirit that's so important. And of course, you see them in those difficult tragedies, but you know what? We can do that on a day-to-day basis. We lend a helping hand. It's a polite yes, hello, thank you, how are you, can I help in any way? And so those simple acts of kindness, I think, are so important. And I think that's, that human spirit coming out daily in ordinary situations is as important as well.
What new book, activity, technology, or skill are you really excited to learn and dive into?
Well, I'm going to read your book, as a matter of fact, now that you told me. And so that's I'm excited about my book, obviously. But, from a technology point of view, I think it's not so much a particular one. It's kind of this whole concept of embracing it. I think that I look at my grandkids now, and, as I said before, I mean, I think that it's the balance of the technology, but also the interpersonal skills, right? So, all these kids are so good with technology. They're sitting there with an iPad, easily taking care of themselves. And you go to a restaurant, it seems like iPads are entertaining kids as their parents, or having separate conversations. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about interpersonal skills. I still think there's no substitute for the face-to-face conversations, especially in the business world. As an entrepreneur, you need to talk to your employees. You can't be texting them what you want them to do. I think you need to have that conversation face-to-face. So for me, it's this whole concept of interpersonal skills. It's like, how do you balance good technology with my ability to have a face-to-face, one-on-one conversation with you and say, hey, thanks for doing a good job, or appreciate everything you've done, or I need you to do this, or have that difficult conversation. I think we often text or email way too much.
How can our listeners connect with you?
Well, thank you for asking. So they can connect with me on our website. It's www. It's the number 3, and then the word 60, SIXTY, managementservices.com. You can purchase the book that way. You can send me emails if there's a question that you may have. I get quite a few emails from people who'll ask me a question, or hey, this happened, what do you think? And so if I can help in any way, that would be great. And then, of course, we're on the book can be purchased at Amazon online, Barnes & Noble online. We're on Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn. So we're on all the social medias. We're getting a little better at that. That's probably, if I go back to that last question, I'd probably got to do a better job on the social media. I'm not as good as I could be there, or we could be. But that's probably the easiest way, is on our website, www, the number 3 in the word 60 managementservices.com. And of course, if you have the book, I hope you enjoy the book. And if there's anything I can do help you with, feel free to email us through the website, and we can do some follow-up there.
Finally, Rocky, what's your definition of success?
Did you leave it a little better place than you found it? Are people better because of their time with you? Are your customers better because of their interaction with you? And are the people who you have, your stakeholders, your share owners, they feel good about the fact that you have their business, or you have their company, are in your hands? And that, to me, comes up to the word legacy. Do you have a legacy? Do people, when people think about Antonio, do they think about these 3 key things? That's your brand, right? Companies have brands that they spend a ton of time, a ton of money developing. Well, people have brands too, and your brand is your legacy.
Successors, I hope you've enjoyed my conversation with Rocky Romanella. Please check out more successful free content like this at the4pos.com, as well as rate and review. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Thanks for listening, and prepare for success. Thanks, Rocky.
Thank you very much, man. Be safe. Have a great day.
If you want to do more, earn more, be more, and stay more motivated, visit Amazon.com right now for a copy of Indulge Your Affirmative Motivation Within, 25 Motivations of Personal Development and Life Success. Get it now at Amazon.com.